In my Verb Your Nouns video, I talked about a couple writing exercises I had done with a group a while back, and today I thought for some Saturday pages I would read you those exercises. This first piece of writing was inspired by the prompt, "Justice tumbles." The statue sits on a ridge above town. No matter where you are, it is far and high enough to watch over you. Except, as everyone knows, justice is blind. She stands with her scales perfectly balanced, as she has for decades, and does not see the figure creeping closer, closer, looming behind her in the dark, and her stone does not feel the powerful, fateful shove. Justice tumbles. The scales slip from her hand and fall down the cliffside, crashing like cymbals. The percussive rhythm wakes the town below. The mayor's wife, always a light sleeper, is at the window quickly enough to see Justice herself hit the frozen earth with a snow-dulled crack. Within minutes, the town holds her wake. Their fallen Justice. They won't know for hours yet how completely their lives have shifted. Precious and fragile equilibrium destroyed forever. You might have observed the difference where you come from. The bullies go on to be leaders. The meek do not inherit the earth. But in the valley of justice, what is taken is always restored. So I chose that prompt because I immediately had a vision in my head. When I heard the words "justice tumbled," I thought of that Lady Justice figure, blindfolded, holding scales. I imagined her statue up on some high cliff somewhere, just falling down to the earth. I think that this noun-verb pairing exercise gets especially interesting when the noun you choose is not so much person, place, thing, but like a concept. Although we came up with lots of interesting pairings, and some of them, like elephant slithers, also paint a pretty vivid picture in your mind, so I don't know. The second exercise we did was to describe our surroundings with as many sensory details as possible. But what I had learned from this first exercise was that the verbs were the driving force of this little mini narrative that I had created. And as I was casting my gaze around trying to figure out what to write about, it seemed to me immediately already that anything I wrote of like, it sounds like or it looks like would feel really stale. It's easy to fall into this trap as a writer. I think that description is one of those things that can either be really beautiful and engaging, or it can be really boring and skippable. For example, one of my pet peeves, and it comes up in romances and a lot in young adult novels, is just when we get a paragraph that is describing someone's appearance at length. They have sandy hair or mocha skin or eyes that are brown or blue or gold, and I just don't care. There are lots of different ways to make description interesting. There's the very Douglas Adams way, which is often through some kind of metaphor or comparison that is completely unexpected, like to say that the Vogon ships hung in the air in exactly the way that bricks don't. In a similar vein, you can filter your descriptions through the lens of one character's perspective. Maybe your main character is a small child who feels threatened by the adults in their life, and so all of the descriptions of the adults become descriptions of these monstrous beings because they're seeing them as these sort of nightmarish figures in their life. Those are both ways of lending some kind of narrative voice to your description, whether it's an authorial voice or the character's voice. I couched my description of the sounds in the park in this metaphor of objects dropping into a jar. The sounds are low, random, but predictable. They fill the air like sand and stone pouring into a jar. The rustle of the leaves like fine powder, the rumble of passing cars, gritty dust. Children's chatter drops in like smooth, cool pebbles. A parent's shout, a hot, flat stone that's been baking in the sun. Larger, jagged sounds, a lawnmower, a passing plane, are bulky and obvious, but always, always filled in and softened by the movement of the air or shifting of bodies. Topping off the jar is companionable, focused silence. Within the metaphor of imagining all of these sounds as rocks or other objects being put into a jar, I was able to get some sense of movement and action into my descriptive scene. While I'm not saying that it was a great piece of description, I'm certainly no Douglas Adams, it was an interesting result to come out of a writing exercise. What I'm looking for in an exercise is usually not to produce a great piece of prose, but to produce a piece of prose that has some interesting imagery or concept or snippet of dialogue. When my writing starts to feel rote or stale or mundane, having an exercise that helps you break out of those boxes is really helpful, and then you can pick and choose anything interesting that came out of it, any little diamonds in the rough that you'll be able to use in a larger project and polish up. With that, those have been my pages for the day, and my friends and fellow VEDSies, I will see all of you tomorrow. That's it. There's no funny after credits thing. I'm just gonna bonk you with my notebook. Bye!